I think you got to give it to John just for the head-to-head Super Bowl win. You know, that's the better case, I would think, because it's direct. It's both of them had equal opportunity. Both of them were level playing field in the NFL. John walked away with the win after the lights went out and all that chaos of that Super Bowl. But I would say Jim has had a tremendous amount of success on the collegiate level, both at Stanford University before he got to the NFL, taking him. We were 12-1, went to the Orange Bowl, beat Virginia Tech, then went on to the NFL, went to a Super Bowl, played his brother, lost, still had winning seasons, went to a few NFC championships, had some unfortunate luck there, went back to college, had taken his team to the playoffs multiple times, now taking him to the national championship. You do have to give him credit for that. But when you have a head-to-head result, you got to give it to the winner of that. Okay, and by the way, how was Jim to play for? Did you have any real relationship with him or feel for him? He was different, Skip. He was very different. We butted heads a lot of my time at Stanford, but he did a great job of hiring fantastic coaches around him from that staff. I think there ended up being 6 head coaches, 10 coordinators, just a really incredible staff that he was able to put together at Stanford. And I'm sure, you talk about Greg Roman, Willie Taggart, David Shaw, Vic Fangio. That's just guys off the top of my head from one staff. And so, Pep Hamilton, you got guys like that, and he has a lot of the same things going on at Michigan and having the same success. So you got to give him a ton of credit for what he's been able to do. Richard, what did you butt heads over?
Yeah, boy, you know that. I was going to ask that same thing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that same thing. We're not surprised, Herm, that you butt heads with anybody. But I would like to know, what were you butting heads over?
Well, because I'm a tremendous competitor, and when I don't feel like the team's put in a position to be successful, I think it was a Washington game. We were down 3 scores, and we were running the ball and not throwing the ball down 3 scores. Or playmaker, I don't know if you've ever played in a game where you're down 3 scores and you're a receiver and you're watching us run the ball and not put the ball up. You're like, hey, what are we doing here? Are we trying to win the game or are we trying to run the clock? I'm not sure. But yeah, we had a few issues, where we didn't see eye to eye.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Michael. And I love both of these guys, man. I really do. Jim's the younger brother, right? And it seems like he's the younger brother, always making noise to make sure he is heard.
That's true.
And it just seems like Jim is always making noise to make sure he's heard. Mm-hmm. But John is that stable force that's been the same place for forever. You can count on him not going anywhere. Jim's a little more volatile. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Jim's like, Jim's not going to take so much. He's only going to deal with so much. I was watching him the other day, right before the game, when he was chewing that gum. He was directed at chewing that gum. He was like, like he felt confident about his team going into that game, man, which really kind of threw me off because I thought I'd see a little bit worry on his face. But I like Jim, but I would have to say when you put 16 years in at one place and you did win your Super Bowl and you even changed things around to fit your quarterback and you continue to win games from a Flacco to a Lamar Jackson style quarterback, and you produce the same thing. That's pretty impressive. But Jim has had a very impressive career also. So these 2 coaches right here, man, their dad the dad who's a coach also will be very proud of what they've done. They've been incredible.
Okay, I'm going to first echo what Michael just said. These are 2 top-line coaches, 2 of the best we've ever seen at pro and college. And yet, this is just me. I think, though John's a little more likable than Jim is, I do think Jim has shown a little more range as a football coach because, as you guys know, it's hard to coach college football, especially today with all the new crazy rules or lack thereof. It's just hard to do both at the highest level. We saw Coach Saban try to go to the Dolphins, and it was just a disaster. It didn't work, and he fled right back to college football where he belongs. But if you look at what Jim has done on both levels, Richard experienced it firsthand at Stanford, as he said, 12-1. But Jim turned around that University of San Diego program when it was nothing. He turned around Stanford. Richard was part of it. Then he winds up going to the 49ers, who were not very good, and they go to 3 straight NFC championship games. And Jim Harbaugh did have the guts and vision in midstream to switch quarterbacks and go with Colin Kaepernick. I'm not sure Colin would have gotten a shot for anybody else besides Jim. Right. And it produced a Super Bowl. And by the way, that game went down to the last throw of the game from Colin to Crabtree. I know you had your battles and issues with Crabtree, Richard, but I thought he was interfered with in the end zone on the last play, but they're not going to call it. But then he goes to Michigan, so he goes back to college football, and they've won 3 straight Big Ten championships, and he's in the national championship game. That's a lot of range for a coach. Now, we look at John, and he had that miraculous run to the Super Bowl, obviously, with Flacco. But if you look at his last 8 years, they've only won 1 playoff game in the last 8 years in Baltimore. And if you look at the 10 years since the Super Bowl run, he's 2-5 in the postseason, and 5 times in those 10 years they missed the playoffs. So he's had a little bit of a drought in Baltimore, as great as he is, and he is great, but it's not like he's created a consistent dynasty there now. I think they got a great chance to win it all this year, but Jim, wherever Jim has gone, good to great things have happened pretty quickly, and then what happens with Jim, he just burns people out on him. You know, it's just hard to take him for a long time. So he's not a dynastic type coach. He's not a John who wears well. You know, you can live with John for a long, long time in Baltimore. They're very happy with him. And I'm sure he can just write his ticket there and stay as long as he wants, because they're always pretty to very good. And this year they could be great. So, again, I would give Jim a slight edge in showing coaching range, both college and pro football, that I don't know that John could do. Is that fair?
Yeah. It is fair, because Jim has had those successes that you talked about, and in different areas, and dealing with different types of dudes. Even going from Stanford, from Stanford going over to Michigan, you're dealing with different types of athletes all around. Yeah. And he's continuing to have that success. But, man, I still love what John has done over the years. Yeah. And you think about all the players that come out of Baltimore. I haven't heard anything or any one of them say, man, I'll never play for that guy. I hate that guy. I don't like that guy. You know what I mean? He's been rock solid. I mean, that's a hard pickup. You talk about a guy like that, a guy like Mike Tomlin, that's been just solid dudes, solid coaches, give you the knowledge you need, but also can give you the right talking and the right mentoring. Absolutely. So I love them both. Yeah. Jim, like you say, he's going to burn it out pretty soon. He's going to burn everything up on his way.
I mean, usually it's already burned out. So I think he's in Michigan to stay, because usually he's already run his course, and they've somehow survived that and been able to deal. And, you know, I think the team rallied around him after the suspension for the transgressions of the team. You know, I don't know if he's going anywhere.
Okay. And
it seems like it just seems like he loves this kind of stuff. He performs better in this kind of stuff. When he's at odds with everybody, or people are all on him, that's when he brings out his best coaching. And I think that's what I saw last night pregame, when he was chewing on that gum.
All right, final point, just for the record. I do think there's a small stain on Jim's resume, because he did get busted for overseeing, even though he says he had no knowledge, but he did oversee this sign-stealing operation at Michigan. So I do think you have to take a little bit of that into account. I hope that's fair, but I think it is.
I don't know. I don't know if they will. They don't take nothing into account when talking about Belichick, and we all know how that went, Skip. So I think people going to forget about this pretty quick.
All right. Okay, up next, got to talk some Buffalo at Miami. I'm going to ask the question, are the Dolphins just fraudulent? Here we go.
no mercy, no mercy, no mercy.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.